Hi there, my name is Leif Gregerson, and I wanted to make a video to talk about a book I've written. I'll start off just with the basics. The book is called Through the Withering Storm. At one point I had put the title down as Through the Withering Storm, A Brief History of a Mental Illness. It was a very difficult book to write. It took me a good number of years. I started out as a writer not knowing much about how to do things, and basically what I did was I used a lot of stuff I learned in school from English 30. In Alberta we go 10, 20, 30 for grade 10, 11, and 12. And I'd taken English 30 and I had learned how to write essays. You state what you want to say, you make paragraphs for valid points, you write an outline, you do a second draft. I worked through the book that way, doing just short stories from my life. Some of the stories I feel are pretty interesting. I had a lot of time in my youth when my friends and I would get together and get into all kinds of trouble. One time I remember we thought it'd be fun to get drunk and go to a dance, and we got a little too drunk, or at least I did. Ended up in a snowbank and nearly froze to death. I woke up 14 hours later in my own bed and I couldn't feel my feet. That's a problem you often get in Alberta, is freezing to death when you're drunk, unfortunately. But the story's about more than that. The story's about one person's struggle to take the hand that life dealt to him and to change it into a winning hand, rather than just accepting what's been thrown at you and saying you're going to be nothing. I really wanted to make something of myself. I really wanted to be a voice. I've written a lot of stuff. I've written poetry, short stories, won a few contests, been paid for different magazine articles and different things of that nature. I really have a strong desire to tell people about my life, not only because it makes me feel better, but also because I'm hoping it'll make other people feel better. I started out being diagnosed with mental illness when I was 14, and I pretty much thought my life was over from that point. I was in school, I was going to cadets, and I had, while I was in the hospital for 2 weeks, I refused to go to any school. I would go to cadets, and while I was in the hospital I was actually promoted to corporal, which was something that had really meant a lot to me. But I just had a lot of problems, really. Cadets took over my life. I was running around wearing army uniforms, trying to build bombs and fuses and different things like that. I remember one time I was going through a field and it was all dry grass, and I took a cigarette and I put it in a pack of matches and lit the cigarette and just threw it out in the field, and I came back the next day and the entire field had burned. And what I didn't realize was that there were houses around there were trees, there were, this was a very destructive thing. People could have been hurt, killed. It was scary, but for me it was just something that was natural. And as I look back now, I like to call myself a Christian. I actually go to a Catholic church, although I'm not a Catholic. But when I look back now, I can say to myself that, well, I did those things because God wasn't in my life and I didn't understand right from wrong. But really, 14 is a time when you're old enough to understand right from wrong. And I should have, except for my illness. My illness is known as bipolar disorder, also manic depression, and I struggled with it for years. Again, the book mostly talks about my teen years and different things I did. I can't come up with a lot of them right now. It was a very common thing to drive drunk. It was a very common thing to take pistols and go out shooting at street signs as we drove past them, and it was just a whirlwind of stupid mistakes that I made. And it ended up that I lost a lot of friends, that I had a very difficult time, that people didn't understand why I did the things I did, and I medicated my problems with alcohol. I used to get just uproariously drunk sometimes, and it's a shameful thing, but I'm not afraid to talk about it because that's not me anymore. I have now gone 2 years without a drink. I've gone 7 years without a cigarette. I don't gamble. I have a good job, a very good job, and it's because I finally started admitting that I had a problem. A lot of people with bipolar are in denial. When I was 18, I was thrown in the hospital. It was quite a day actually. I had already been in the hospital, the provincial mental hospital, and I got out and I had a few days, and for some reason I had convinced myself that I was in love with this girl and she was in love with me, and I basically went and beat up someone who was her boyfriend, and I was taken back to school, and I can remember sitting in front of the school administrators, and basically one of them said, "What's the problem, Leaf? You know, I thought we were friends." And I said the stupidest thing that came to me. I said, "You're not my friend. I've never seen you before in my whole life." And the next thing they said was, "Call the police." And it was shameful. I had seen a James Cagney movie when I was younger about this man being hauled off to his execution, and he had been a great impression on this boy that was younger than him, and so this priest had come to him and said, when you get hauled off, don't make a show of it. You know, you don't want to let this kid think that you did the right thing, you did a good thing, that you're Mr. Tough Guy, that being tough is important." And basically the police came to the school, they walked me out into the hallway, and I would have gone quietly, but when we got out in the hallway I noticed that they had lined up all the people I had gone to school with for all these years, and they were all lined up watching me, and my God, it just flicked a switch in my brain, and I pushed one cop into a wall, I took the other cop and I threw him into the first cop, and we were struggling and wrestling, and finally they got me into this really secure hold. And it was kind of sad because I remember being dragged out, and there was this girl, and I knew she had liked me, and I liked her quite a bit, and I just remember that that was the last time I was ever going to see her. I actually did see her in a mall, but I was shunned, barred, whatever else you want to call it, if not by the administrators of that school from coming back. I was socially shunned and barred, and I never did go back. That girl died a few years later of a heart attack. You know, I don't blame myself, but it was sad because she cared about me, and I cared about her. But all that aside, when I was 18 and the police had taken me to the hospital, I was in a very negative state. I was violent, aggressive, irrational, all these things, and it was because I had allowed my mind to go so far downhill. I knew there was problems. My mother, who saw a psychiatrist, had earlier the year before offered me to go and see her psychiatrist, and I had declined. And if I had gone, I might have gotten some help, but I didn't. And I let things go, and I didn't tell anybody, and I kept my mouth shut. And that's one of the things I want to say with the book is, you know, that is the last thing you should do. You need to open up if you feel something is going wrong. You need to tell people, if not your family, if they won't listen, a school counselor, you know. And but I let things go so far, and I got locked up in what I like to call the violent ward, but it's also known as the lockup ward, and it was the most horrible place you could imagine. Everything was filthy. It was all about 100 years old. People were wandering around. The things I saw, I saw one man, I don't know what had happened to him, but basically what had happened is when he was brought in, he had a paper bag full of $20 bills, and he had no shoes on, and I guess he had had a problem, and he just took off and into the wilderness, and they found him with this money and no shoes. And when I saw him, he would just walk a few steps and stop, and his shoes were, the soles of his feet were about an inch thick with blisters and burns and stuff for frostbite, I should say. And there was a couple of natives once that when they came in, they took a crap on the floor and told people it was drugs and they had to smoke it. And just absolutely incredible things. You know, people just get up and start punching you for no reason. And one of the most horrible things I remember was waking up to hear, in a dorm room, waking up to hear someone throwing up on the floor just across from me, and asking them to go to the bathroom, and having them come up and pummel the crap out of me with their fists. And if I did anything, if I said anything wrong to the staff or anything, I would be grabbed, wrestled to the ground, injected with horrible, horrible drugs. And this is what life was like for quite a while. And I didn't understand it, and there was nothing I could do about it. That's the way it was. It was hell. And that's what happens when you let things go, when you deny things, when, you know, it went on like that. I was back there years later. I was in the thick of it. And I wrote the book to talk about these things and to get them out in the open. I got out of there. I got out of the hospital eventually, and I still didn't think there was anything wrong with me, despite all the things that happened. And I ended up going to Vancouver. I worked on my pilot's license for a while, which was ridiculous because there's no way they're going to give someone with a mental health record a pilot's license. And one day that got boring, so I met up with this guy, a Marine from the U.S., and we traveled down to Seattle, and I was going to join the Marine Corps and all that stuff. And before too long, the old problems just kept coming back. And to think of what I did to my parents while this was going on, they were just going through hell. And I finally ended up deciding that I wasn't going to get anywhere without treatment, and I ended up going back. And well, I'm going to make more videos like this about the book, and if you're interested, please leave a comment. And the book is available at Smashwords as well as Amazon.com as an ebook. The title is Through the Withering Storm. And I hope you enjoyed this talk. I've certainly enjoyed giving it. There will be more to come, and there will be other videos. Thank you.